The Village of Bailey, Northern Superior Railroad, and Clearwater Southern recently revealed ambitious plans to redevelop the community's rail yard and fuel plant. The goal of the project is simple: expand these facilities, link the rail lines, and bring new jobs to Bailey. Plans also include a new business park, as well as a new sports complex and hockey arena, a first for the county. Governor Timmons has even thrown her support behind the project, seeing as the link between the railroads would close a crucial gap in the state's freight rail network. She has pledged to include funding for the rail improvements and a new grade-separated interchange to serve Bailey in her upcoming budget, so long as local approvals are quickly granted for the redevelopment. Annexation is the first step, as Bailey cannot grant zoning entitlements to land outside of its boundaries. And that's because in the state of Superior, annexations require review by both the county and the state to ensure that the annexation serves the public interest. And that's where things have gotten complicated here in Magnolia County. The annexation petitions seem to have stalled out, and the development group has accused County Executive King of being the reason for the delay. They claim to have evidence that he told his staff that development should be focused in Bend, keeping rural areas rural. And if he's expressed these views to his staff, it's not hard to imagine he'd use his office to make them a reality. As a result, the group sued the county, while also launching an ad campaign accusing Mr. King of breaking state law to the detriment of the county. And in response to this increased public scrutiny, Mr. King convenes a county board meeting to quickly vote on the annexation. But hundreds of residents flood the meeting, calling Mr. King Chuckles the job killer, demanding that the annexation is approved, which it ultimately is by a unanimous vote. Following the approval, Governor Timmons holds a press conference with Clearwater Southern's Jamila Jones, stating that the project is just the beginning. Rail is alive and well in Magnolia County, and so is development, she states. Since the meeting, Mr. King has not been seen publicly, though rumors suggest he feels betrayed by the governor, with whom he'd been a strong ally. But that's a story for another day, because in today's video, we're going to turn this vision for Bailey into reality. Our goals are twofold: create the best business park that we can and balance the budget, since the new anniversary patch left us in the red. To achieve this, we'll focus on the one area that we didn't touch in Bailey last time, and we're going to take a sledgehammer to it. But this time, instead of reusing the old roads, we're going to create something completely new. And to balance the budget, we'll adjust taxes, refine services, and fill in the gaps in the Copper Valley Business Park in Bend. We'll also add a few signature buildings to help improve our financial situation. And at the end, we'll also make a couple of changes to the previous build based on your feedback. And if you're excited to make a realistic looking business park, hit the like button. Or if you're more curious about that future rail connection, hit the like button for that too, and let me know what route you think it should take in the comments below. Or just leave an emoji representing industry for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, as many of you know, I recently rented out a new office space to create content from. But what I didn't fully appreciate was just how much I'd need to get this place set up. Everything from storage to seating to a kitchenette so that I can enjoy my coffee throughout the day. But the most important thing, my desk and workspace. For that, I reached out to today's video sponsor, FlexiSpot, who hooked me up with their E7 Plus sit-stand desk with a dark bamboo top. And I have to say, this isn't just the best sit-stand desk that I've used, it's the best desk that I've worked at, period. Listen, my setup is demanding. 3 computers, 2 monitors, an audio interface, a couple of stream decks, speakers, a dock, a microphone, and even a teleprompter. And despite all that gear, I still have tons of space. My favorite thing about the desk is that it's incredibly sturdy. This thing can lift me plus all my gear, and I'm a shade over 200 pounds. And I love that because it's a sit-stand desk, I can stand when my back starts to hurt or when I feel like I'm losing focus, and sit back down when I need that too. So if you're in the market for a high-quality desk, be sure to check out FlexiSpot. The tracking link below will take you to a page where you can check out the E7 Plus for yourself, and if you use my code at checkout, you'll save $50 on your purchase while also helping to support the channel. A huge thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. We're beginning today on pause, and that's because the moment that we resume the game, we're going to see some major changes happen in Magnolia County. We're going to see homelessness become resolvable. We're going to see our industries completely reshuffle the deck. We're going to see our population plummet and then climb back up, and we're going to see all of our industries change. Some are going to leave town, some are going to relocate, and we're going to see just major shifts in the amount that we're taking in tax revenue. So because we're going to see that, I figure we could build through that, but I'd rather let things run for a few months so that some of those things start to shake out and we can start to respond to some of the challenges that the region will face. So we're going to let this run for 3 months, then we'll adjust taxes, and we'll also add a couple of signature buildings so that we have a little bit easier time adjusting to this new economy. A little over 3 months have gone by, and it has been a real roller coaster. So a quick recap. We basically started seeing major simulation changes in December. We had a huge death wave, a crime wave, we had a whole bunch of sickness, And then mid-December, we started to see our budget drop into the red. After that happened, we started to see some of our businesses out here failing, and that has only accelerated. Now, the first time I saw this, I thought, oh my goodness, the county is cooked and there's no way to save it. But what's happening is that the simulation is working. So I know that this looks alarming, but there are ways that we can solve it. First and foremost, I want to take a look at what businesses are failing, because I think that we're going to see some patterns. Right here, we can see that this sells electronics. This one that's on fire, electronics. Right here, more electronics, even more electronics. The reason that these businesses don't have enough customers is there are simply too many electronics stores. So it makes sense that these are going to fail. And I think that if we look all around the map, we're going to see a very similar instance, electronics. So the way that we can resolve some of these issues is through taxing, because that is now going to work for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop into our economy view and look at taxation, because we're going to adjust a couple of things. So underneath commercial, you can see that electronics is where we're getting the bulk of our tax revenue. That's not good. So I'm going to boost this up just a little bit. Now this will do two things for us. Number one, it'll make electronics less attractive, opening up an electronics shop, as if not having enough customers wasn't good enough. But this will also deplete their bank balances, because if we look at any of these, when we have extended tooltip installed, you can see that their balance right now is $400,000. So they're not going to go bankrupt right now and leave the city because they've got a lot of money. So by cranking up the taxes on them, it'll incentivize them to leave sooner because their bank balance will run out faster. I want to see if there are any other outliers here, and it seems like for the most part, it's fairly balanced. So let's take a look at our industry, and I'm guessing we're going to see the exact same pattern here. We've actually got quite a bit of paper. I'm likely going to boost this up as well. And interestingly, we're not producing a lot of electronics here. It seems like it's fairly balanced, which is a good thing. Next, I want to take a look at production to see if there are any things that we are overproducing and things that we are underproducing. And you can see that we are grossly underproducing convenience food. So we're likely going to want to incentivize this one. Same thing with petrochemicals. And for whatever reason, we're producing a ton of paper, so we're going to increase taxes there as well. So we'll take petrochemicals, bump that down to 8%. We'll do the exact same thing with convenience food. And I think I'm also going to incentivize normal food and textiles as well, considering those were big needs in our community. Now, this has temporarily improved our financial position, but I think that if we really want to fix things, we're going to need to build more industry. And the reason I feel that way is if we take a look at our city statistics and look at trade, we can see that things are all out of balance. Now, previously, before the patch, we were producing a ton. And honestly, that never really made a lot of sense because we don't have a large industrial base. And now, because we don't have that large industrial base, but we have a large community, we're importing everything. So if we want to stem all of the imports, we're going to need to produce more locally or place down signature buildings that reduce import costs. And that should, in turn, improve our company profitability. Now, in the past in Magnolia County, our company profitability across the board was above 90%. But with this new patch, you can see that our average commercial profit is 7%, industrial is 24%, and office is 82%. Now, the reason why commercial profit is so bad is because we have so many electronic stores, and they're not profitable. And this is, of course, an average. For industry, it's because we lack warehousing. So if we had more warehousing and maybe even more extractors, we'd see that average industrial profit increase. And the reason why offices are doing fine is they have intangible goods. So they're not really as impacted by this patch as commercial and industrial. So ultimately, I think that we're going to need to expand our Copper Valley Industrial Park a little bit later on in the episode, but I want to finish our new business park first. However, I came out here for one specific reason. I think that we've had some city services that we've been neglecting for a while, including power and water. In fact, if we take a look at our services menu, we've got our electricity turned down to 70 for a while, and we are currently importing some. So I'm going to reset this and likely add an extra turbine onto our power plant so that we become net exporters of power. Same thing with water. We are importing and we have our budget turned down. We'll reset that one as well. There's a little bit of short-term pain there, but you can see that we're no longer importing, we're exporting a ton, and our budget has actually improved. The final thing I want to do before we start building is add a couple of signature buildings. The main reason for that is some of our signature buildings actually have a significant influence on the economy. In particular, some of the signature buildings that decrease import costs. So knowing that we're importing so much right now, adding this Heath pub with lounge would be really beneficial for us because it would reduce the overall import cost citywide. So I'm going to add a couple of these signature buildings that are going to lower those import costs. And the UK pack is excellent for this because we have a number of pubs that do this. So I'm going to add one in the downtown area. And I'm going to go with this smaller Heath pub because I should be able to eliminate a couple of housing units here and replace it with the pub. And that looks just fantastic here. Honestly, I probably should have placed this in the previous episode, but I'm glad that the economy forced us to now. And I think I'll place another pub right about here. There are a couple of homes that don't quite fit the vibe of the build, so it's the perfect opportunity to replace these. And then for a bit of balance, I think I'm going to throw in a bit of commercial here as well, and this will be kind of a neighborhood shopping center. In my opinion, this is fantastic. This would be a real neighborhood gem and a place that I think a lot of people here would enjoy walking to. Then there are two more that I want to add. One which is going to be helpful and one which is a new asset that I think is going to fit the downtown perfectly. The one that's going to be helpful is this pub and restaurant. This one again reduces our import costs and increases the attractiveness of the entire region. So I'm going to place that right here, right near the waterfront. And then because we've added this here, I also want to open up a view of the water, as well as add some access from the restaurant to it. And then the final signature building that I want to add is going to be the steakhouse that came with the Leisure Venues Content Creator Pack. Now, I was under the impression that this doesn't actually provide any reduction in import costs, but it actually does, as well as providing attractiveness, happiness, and meals. So we're going to clear a spot right here for it, and apparently go a little bit too hard and get rid of things that we shouldn't have. So I'll need to add something back. And in my opinion, that's the perfect addition to this block. And over time, all these signature buildings should improve our overall financial outlook. And with all of that complete, let's move on to building our highway and rail improvements. And now for the fun part. We get to take out our sledgehammer and rethink this entire area. But before we do that, I want to think about how we link Bailey to Bend via rail. And for this, I reached out to B. Squagelhausen for a bit of advice. And what he suggested is sending a track right along the side of this fuel facility, crossing the river right here and following the highway to get to Bend. And I love that idea. And even though we are going to be rethinking this entire area, I still want to honor B. Squagelhausen's vision and have this track that goes right here. So to begin, I'm going to grab the diesel tracks of the non-electrified track, and then I want to snap to the side of the building and make sure that I have a very low elevation step on. I also have constant slope selected, which I think is always valuable to have on when you're building rail, and I'll tack that right onto the side here. I'm going to boost this up so that it's relatively level coming out of this area. And then I want to use a special bridge to cross the river. So I think I'm going to use this stone pillar bridge that's unelectrified. And if you're wondering where I'm getting all of this unelectrified stuff, this is from Tigon's Rail Infrastructure Pack. It is absolutely wonderful, and we're going to be using it extensively. And this is as close to Bend as we're going to get today, but you can see the vision now, and we have a nice special bridge crossing the river, so I really like that. Now that we have that in place, we can get rid of everything here though, and we're going to do just that. And now that we have our clean slate, I want to link up this rail connection to this one right here. And the main reason for that is we're going to be going over the top of this with our highway, and I want to make sure that our pillars don't conflict. And now that we have that in place, let's add our highway. And for this, I just want to basically follow the path that we were going down before. And I'll turn off anarchy to make sure that I'm making it up and over the top of these rail facilities. I decided to redo this curve right here. It felt like it was a little bit too tight, and this sweeping movement feels really, really good. So Now let's focus on the local roads for a minute, because I feel like the local roads and the placement of the depot are going to really dictate what our interchange looks like. So to that end, I want to extend our arterial underneath the highway and across the railroad tracks. But first, we've got to buy some more tiles because we're going to be building all the way down the river. Now, this is a little bit counterproductive because this will make us go into even more debt, but you got to spend money to make money sometimes, and we're going to do that today. And then before we extend that arterial, let's do a little bit of grading. And by a little bit, I mean we're going to smooth this entire area out. Basically, I want to take this contour line and have a nice smooth gradient all the way down to here. And I think that that is reasonable considering there would be a lot of freight traffic in this entire area. So now I want to extend the arterial underneath the highway, and I'm going to make sure that we don't have anarchy on once again. And you can see that there's a pillar issue right here. It looks like I have an extra pillar here for no reason. So I'll just redo this small segment of the highway. I've got an idea that I think is going to make a lot of sense in the long run that might seem a little strange now. I'm going to extend the arterial across the rail, and then we're going to switch into a couplet. Now, the main reason I want to do this is we're going to have a lot of semi-traffic here, and having a couplet will allow me to really control movements. So now I want to think about our rail depot, and that's going to go right about here. That's why we had this big flat pad. Now, one of the things that's going to be a goal here is I want the leftmost rail coming out of the depot to line up perfectly straight with this. So to that end, I will send an access road to the rail depot right here. And I want to take a look at the asset that we're going to use and kind of dry fit it into place. So I'm thinking that we're going to use the medium train depot long 5-track. There is a through and a non-through variant, and I'm going to go with the non-through variant for this build. And it looks like if I place this right about here, it'll fit perfectly. And now for the part that I've been nervous about, connecting up this rail depot to our main line. For this, we're going to be using this 2-way train track unelectrified from Tigon's rail assets and try to just make a nice straight connection right here into this main line. And then at the end right here, we're going to loop back in towards Bailey. Now there are a couple of lumpies and bumpies, and I should be able to fix these with Move It. It's just making sure that our heights are the same and that everything looks beautiful. Let's also clean up our pillars while we're at it. And for this, I'll just add a node right here and another one right there. And then we'll just remove those ones with a better bulldozer. And then the last thing we have to do before we can build our interchanges is build our cargo train terminal. Now for that, I need to lay out some local roads. And for this, I think I'm just gonna go with more of our alleyways, and we're gonna mirror the train track to begin. And then we'll just use the continuous tool to follow this track. Now for this, I want to use a medium train terminal freight yard unelectrified. This is going to be the perfect size for this, and it will allow a variety of freight, not just grains or something of that nature. And I'm going to add this right here so that this road is basically centered on the track. And you can see that we've got some conflicts here. We'll resolve those. I'm not overly concerned about some of the fences and lights and things of that nature. We can remove those from the asset. And actually, after looking at this, I am a little bit disturbed because we have these buildings right here that are in the track. So I'm going to move this a little forward off from the track. And then we'll modify this road to basically completely parallel this facility. And then finally, we'll link this up, and I'm going to make this a fairly simple connection. And then finally, I want to grab this existing route and see if this works by sending this into this facility. And you can see that it looks like it's going to work just fine. The route reestablished itself, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And now it's finally time for the interchange. And for this, we're going to have to make some compromises because we have a lot of infrastructure in place already. So I'm thinking that a park load is going to work perfectly here, but it's going to be a little bit messy to construct. So I'm going to build the more challenging end, which will probably be right here, getting over all of these railroad tracks. I want to reuse this intersection right here. and we'll use a 2-lane, 2-way highway. And our main goal is going to be to jump up and over this railroad right here. We should actually probably grade this first as well. And something like this should do the trick for us. This will not all be an elevated segment. We will ground some of this, but for now, this will be much easier to construct. Then we'll use our continuous tool to connect right into the existing highway. And there we go. So this is a fully functional interchange for this leg, but we should probably do a little bit more work here. I want to have acceleration and deceleration lanes. And now we'll do the exact same thing we did on this side And the first thing I want to figure out is the distance right here. And that's because I want to make sure that the curve is more or less the same. It looks like it's about 70 meters. I'm going to start at the top this time. And that's not exactly the same, but I think when you eyeball it, it looks pretty good. So I'll just repeat this on the other end. And now this is technically a fully functional interchange, but I think we got to clean things up just a little bit. And if there are any places where we can get rid of bridge segments, we should absolutely do that. And then finally, I want to take a look at these intersections right here and add some extra lanes. So right here, for instance, I think the dominant movement would be leaving the highway. And over here, though I think the dominant movement would be getting on the highway, I want to have a free right-hand turn. And with this, I was able to accomplish two things. Number one, make a nice smooth movement into Bailey. And number two, make this a 90-degree angle. It was a little bit askew before, and that would make it unsafe. And with that, our core infrastructure is in place. So let's move on to building our business park. Now you might have noticed that I've been calling this a business park and not an industrial park. And that's very deliberate. I don't really care whether we have industrial jobs or office jobs. I just want some jobs. And that's because we have a really high unemployment rate right now. 25.6%, which is kind of outrageous. I have a feeling that this is why we have homeless citizens. And if we provide jobs, we won't have homeless citizens anymore. And hopefully we won't be losing $111,000 per hour. There are two different halves of this park. Over here, we're gonna have the modern section where things are a bit more spread out and maybe we have some larger industrial buildings. And over here, I want this to feel older. I want industrial right next to housing. And to that end, we're gonna have smaller scale industrial and maybe even some city service buildings. And that's where I wanna begin. So I'm going to zone mostly 2x3 and 2x4 lots here. And I've left a couple of gaps here for parking and for vacant parcels. Now while this area is filling in, I want to focus on this area right here. And I want to have a second road maintenance depot. This should improve the condition of the roads out here and ensure that deliveries are happening as quickly as possible, improving our economy for all the businesses and the residents in this area. I'm going to add a local road coming off from this rail yard right here. And then I want to maximize our zoning. So I'll extend that right here. And I'm going to make this a nice gentle angle so that it's ideal for semis. And we'll place the road maintenance depot right there. And now that these are filling in, I can see that we're not getting warehousing. We're getting mostly manufacturing. So I think I'm going to plop some things. Now that those are all gone, let's search for warehouses. And they're fairly easy to find. All you have to do is go underneath industrial and type in warehouse and they all show up. Now, before we plop any of these, I should grade this area out because I know that it's lumpy and bumpy. And that is much more the vibe I was going for. No smokestacks. Now I want to switch gears and focus on this area right here. And we're going to build something a little bit controversial, something you might not expect to see built today, a mobile home park. Now, the reason this is going to exist right here is when this city was booming and when this industrial area was booming, there was a huge need for jobs. And as a result, this mobile home park was built. Now, oftentimes these remain because they are not allowable by zoning codes, which makes them very valuable. But they're also a source of affordable housing, so they fulfill a need as well. We're going to build this mobile home park using some vanilla assets. But first, we have to build a circulation pattern through here. Now, once again, we're going to be searching for a very specific asset, and I want to look for North American Level 1 low-density homes. And we're going to take this building right here, this 3x2 mobile home park, and paste it all throughout this entire area. But I have a little wrinkle for this. I don't want to just line them up like this. That's not how mobile home parks generally look. I want to maximize the number of trailers that we can fit in here. So as a result, I'm going to rotate these things so that we can stack them. And this pattern right here should allow us to maximize our density. And there we go. And you can see that there is a lot of density right here, which is exactly what we were going for. But it looks pretty messy, so we're going to use Better Bulldozer to clean it up. And basically, if you've ever been to a trailer park, there aren't a lot of fences there, at least not the ones that I've been at. So I'm going to eliminate 100% of these and all the surfaces. And then from there, the last thing I want to do is add a landscape buffer around here to protect this area from some of the sights and sounds of the industrial area. I think right here I'm going to add even more of our warehouses before we transition into a heavy industrial site. This time I'll go for some 6x6 buildings, which are sure to spawn larger factories. Now, while these are filling in, I decided to add a little bit of warehousing right here to bookend this area, and there's a couple more changes that I want to make as well. First of all, I want to add some parking throughout this entire area, and I want to modify the roadway network through here. Right now, I think that we're seeing a lot of trucks blast through this area, but maybe it's not the best route. Maybe we actually want them to go down here past the mobile homes, unfortunately. So to dissuade this movement, what I'm going to do is shift this road up a couple of units. And then we'll move the warehouses over just a scotch. And now this feels like a local road. This one feels like a collector, as does this one. So now for our parking, we are going to be using our parking roads. I just want to make sure that these are nice and straight. So if I have snapping to existing geometry and 90-degree angles, I can easily create these right behind the factories. Now in this final lot right here, I want to add in something special. So we're going to go for another signature building. This time, I'm going to place the EE office. This to me feels like the kind of building that you might see in an industrial park, and it's going to give us 1% extra efficiency for our offices citywide. This will help us with our terrible deficit. And that is a lot of parking, but I don't think it's out of line with this kind of use in this particular area. Now, before we move on to the other half of the industrial park, I want to make this feel a bit more real. And for that, I'm going to spread out some of these surfaces and add some parking. Now we're going to add parking to all of these buildings, but I got a bit of a confession to make. In the previous episode, I used the parking decals, and while they do work for parking, the cars become trapped there. So we're not going to place those today. And in fact, later on, we're going to replace the ones that we plopped. Instead, we're going to use domes parking, which are functional parking spaces that you can plop. So we're going to go along here and just paste these just like this. And we're going to do this all the way through this entire industrial area. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but the payoff is going to be worth it in the end. It also means that I'm likely going to have to prune down the number of buildings that I place because in some cases like this, they're just too close together. And the last thing I want to do on this side of the highway is add a bit of commercial to this side of Ithaca Avenue. This is going to be auto-oriented commercial, but rather than just having it right on Ithaca, I'm going to add a frontage road. Now on this road, I'm going to add mostly southwestern commercial. This is very auto-oriented, and I think it's going to work perfectly for this location. And at the end here, I want to add 2 signature buildings. First will be Espresso on the Go. This is a drive-through coffee shop, and I think it would be a big hit in this location. And second, I want to add the UK small petrol station. This will again reduce import costs by 1%. Now, I know that many of you are probably thinking this is a terrible road and you don't like it, but in this particular instance, I'm going for realism, not something that I necessarily love. Now let's switch gears and focus on the newer part of the business park. And in contrast with this business park, we're going to have a ton more jobs in this location. And that's because none of these warehouses actually produce jobs. And over here, we're going to have mostly offices and factories. But the first thing I want to build is our fuel plant. And that's because this increases industrial efficiency citywide by 2%. So this is huge. And I'll place that right here along Ithaca Avenue. But this isn't all that I want to do with the fuel plant. I also want to add a train connection. You might wonder how we can do that. It's more of Tigon's rail assets. So I'm going to add an access road right here. And then we're going to add a mini train oil stop unelectrified, which is perfect for the fuel plant. And then finally, we need to connect into this cargo terminal. So for this, I'm going to run a 2-way track right into this rail line. And you know, I just don't like this, so I think we're going to call mulligan on this and try one more thing. And in my opinion, this is a pretty nice start to this plant. But we've got to get a route set up here. So for that, we're just going to ping back and forth to Iron Mountain. There are 2 more things I want to do with this facility. First of all, I want to create a fairly sizable parking facility here. That's because this has up to 412 employees at the current time. And because this is the main parking for this site, I'll also provide full access. Now to the other side of the plant, I want to have a bunch of fuel storage. And this is easy to find. All you have to do is search for oil. And lastly, I want to provide full access here as well. And in my opinion, this is a much better design for the fuel plant than our last configuration. Now I want to add a couple of office parks, and this seems like a very natural location for this, considering we have full access here and full access here. So I'll extend this road straight back, and I'm going to turn this into our county highway right here. And now before we lay out our office park here, let's control our zoning. And I want to disable it on all of these arterials. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this road right here, which would be a collector. Now, I've laid out some roads for this office area, and one thing you'll notice that I've done is I've tried to make sure that there are no through routes, and that was very deliberate. I wanted to make sure that this didn't become a cut-through area, and I think that if you were designing this, you would try to make sure that there are no through routes for that very reason. So now I want to have a whole bunch of lower density offices in this area, and we have the perfect pack for that. The Southwestern low-density offices from the Southwestern USA pack. Now, if I zone larger lots, I should get parking associated with this, which will make it much easier to zone a whole bunch of these really quickly. Now, if we're being honest with ourselves, this is a pretty boring office park, but it's pretty typical. I see these things all over the place. A lot of the same architecture, a lot of it's repeated, and that's because it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. I've actually worked on one of these projects, and it was basically a building like this, repeated, I think 8 times. So this makes perfect sense to me. Now, I want to focus on this area right here and this area right here. And we're going to have industrial in these locations. And because I want to maximize the number of jobs that we're getting, I'm going to go for the largest buildings I can spawn. Now, for each of these factories, I just want to see how many employees are there to see if we have enough parking. And it looks like we have 31 here and 86 here. So I'm going to say that we don't have enough parking. So as a result, I'm going to create my own parking facility here. And to make this quick, I'm just going to use our perpendicular parking alleys. Now, I know that we haven't built a lot, but this feels really good to me. This feels like the best industrial that I've ever built, and it's because I'm paying attention to each and every factory. Rather than just spamming these things, I'm thinking about the needs of the specific assets. Now, you might be wondering why I left a bunch of space right here, and this is all about future expansion. We'll be able to add tracks here down the line, and if we need more capacity, we want to make sure that we have the space. We don't want to encroach, and this would be part of the plans. Now, the other nice thing that's happening is we're starting to close our budget deficit, which feels really good. I wasn't sure how long it would take, but it's not taking all that long. All we have to do is add a bit of industry over here. Now, let's take a look at our unemployment rate, and we're down to 16.5% and dropping, which is fantastic. Though it's interesting, our homelessness has gone up. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And just as we start to make some money, I think it's time that we spend some because I want to place our new sports complex. Now, this might seem like a very strange place for this, and in truth it is, but in the US, these often get placed out in the middle of industrial areas, and it's because the land is cheap and plentiful, and in this particular case, it's because the owners of the business park are donating this. Now, this sports park complex is one of the new parks that we have with the Leisure Venues Content Creator Pack, and I've got to tell you, this thing is outstanding, and it's going to fit perfectly in this location. And I want to try to shield this facility from some of the ugliness around it, so I'm going to add a nice thick row of trees right along Ithaca. Now, this looks pretty good, but we have this really ugly shadow here, and there is a way to fix this. If we jump into our options menu under Show Advanced and head all the way down to Terrain Cast Shadows, if we disable this, that shadow will disappear and it's going to look a ton better. And at this point, the business park is almost where I want it to be today, but there are a couple of changes I want to make. First of all, we didn't add any offices up here, and I think that that's a missed opportunity. So I'm going to grab this office space right here and add them all the way along the back. And that just looks a ton more complete to me. The next thing I want to do is remove all the parking along Ithaca. You can see that we've got a couple of cars parking here, and I just rather that they park in the parking lots associated with the businesses that they work at. So I added street trees to the outside where I can and wide sidewalks to the middle, basically just to take away that parking. Now further up Ithaca, we have a bit of parking here as well, so I'm going to add a wide median, and that should get rid of this as well. And the very last thing I want to do here is add some sort of a turnaround right here on Ithaca. We have this one right here, but I feel like this would have some sort of legitimized turnaround until this business park is completed. So we'll just do something like that. And one last thing for this area, I want to add a whole bunch of trees to these areas that are undeveloped. My goodness, that looks so much better. It's amazing what some dense trees can do to an area, makes it feel so much more realistic. And with our business park complete, let's move on to our Copper Valley Industrial Park improvements. Now I'm going to do a couple of ugly things. Right now, we have a really high unemployment rate, and I really want to bring it down. Now, over time, I think that we can do this in a very pretty way, but for now, I want to stop the budget bleed. So I'm going to add a whole bunch of industrial to this industrial park and get rid of most of the parking lots that we have in here. The reason I want to do that is these parking lots are costing us money, each and every one of these. So if I get rid of these, we're going to start to save quite a bit. So I will eliminate 100% of these, and then I will add a whole bunch of industrial all the way through here. And with all of these additions, we are back in the green financially, which is fantastic. And if we look at our unemployment rate, we're at 12.4%, which is still very high and something that we'll have to address soon. But I feel good that we're finally in the green financially. It means that we have time to resolve these issues. And bluntly, this entire industrial park could use a lot of work. So let me know in the comments if you'd like me to fix this in a new episode or on a stream. So I think it could be a lot of fun to do the exact same thing that we just did in the business park over here, but that might be something that's really fun to do in a stream. So with our region in the green again, there's only one more thing left to do. Let's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. Now, before we wrap things up for the day, I want to make a couple of fixes based on your feedback. And honestly, I've made most of them already. First of all, I got a comment from Tigon Trollhammer, maker of all of the lovely rail assets that we were using today. And he said that I should have been using Dome's parking lot assets. And I should have, because when you place the decals, what ends up happening is cars will park in there and they'll get stuck forever. So I've swapped 100% of the parking out for Dome's parking assets, and now these are all 100% functional. So if you're going to create parking like I did, that's how you should do it. And the next bit of feedback comes from B. Squigglehausen, who says that I should use the water tower right here. What a wonderful sightline for it. So let's add one. Now, if we're going to place this thing here, it has to have the sunglasses. And then I need to make sure that the sunglasses are looking down the road in the correct direction. And I think that that's right. And now when we come down the road, indeed, it's amazing. We have a beautiful smiley face looking down the road at us. So we'll get this connected so it's actually functional. And now we're good to go. And we went through this backyard right here. So I'm imagining there's some kind of an easement. And there's one more B. Squigglehausen fix that I have to make. He suggested replacing this bridge right here with one of Tigon's rail bridges, and I think it's a fantastic suggestion. And check this out. Instead of being an eyesore, this thing would be the pride of the community. It is absolutely lovely now. And then there were two other changes I made off camera because I thought they were the right thing to do. First of all, I added a thick row of landscaping right here so that our trailer park is buffered from this major arterial. And I added a bit of landscaping in front of all of these businesses that have spawned in. I just think that makes it feel much more complete and it makes these much more livable. And then secondly, I adjusted the taxes. So we are currently losing money, but we're kind of oscillating between making a little bit of money, breaking even, and losing just a little bit. I think we're in a fine spot right now. But what I've done is I went back into taxes and I brought everything back to 10%. Now, I think at this point, our simulation is mostly balanced out and things are back to normal. So if we want to be in the green again, we've really got to go ahead and lower our unemployment. Editor Phil here, and I had to cut in because I was wrong. All I had to do was be a little bit more patient and I would be in the green. All I had to do was wait about a month and look at, we are in the green. It is sticky. It's actually improving. As I've been watching this the last couple of minutes, we're making more and more money every couple of hours because ultimately our unemployment rate is going down. We're at 11.2% and it's dropping. And it's honestly dropping pretty quickly. But either way, I'm happy to cut in because I wanted to let you know that this is episode 45, and because it's a 5th episode, I will upload this to Paradox Mods, so go check it out for yourself if you want to take a look at Magnolia County. I'll also be uploading my mods list, hopefully tomorrow, so be sure to check out my website if you're interested in that. Every single mod on that list has been tested and confirmed working. And now that we're in the green, we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing today. Instead, you decided to hang out with me and build this business park and spam a whole bunch of industrial in the other one. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.